Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about, reforestation and protection of biodiversity. My name is Frederic Lagacherie, and I run the forest finance company. We're forest builder for the restoration of soil and biodiversity. I know the title sounds quite like a challenge, but as we said, you have to start doing small things to get to a larger scale at some stage. So we're an environmental and social business. We're not an NGO. We're not, a money-driven company. We're kind of a special beast sitting in the middle, and we try to bring the best out of what people do for biodiversity. So our skills rely on building resilient agro-system, and we'll come back to how we do this later on. We also fight for land restoration. Everything starts from the soil. Again, I'll explain that later. And because everything we do is human, you have to take in consideration the social aspect to it. But so understanding ecosystems is quite a complex task because you have to manage and understand all of those elements. And we also understood that in order to be successful in doing so and bringing change forward, you have to work across the whole value chain. So it's not just about rebuilding forests, but it's also about mobilizing impact finance. We need money to finance these programs, and the good news is that there is plenty of money out there. It's just a matter of finding out a way of channeling that money towards biodiversity. Then, whenever we build a program around agroforestry, for example, we're producing cocoa, we're producing almonds. We work tightly with food producers because they're part of the same chain, and whatever we do on one side has to be, all the value that we create on one side has to be brought forward at the end of the chain up to the customer. And the final point is, again, is research, because to understand something and to restore it, you have to be able to understand the complexity of it. So this is in a nutshell, what we try to do.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, and now Nicolas.
Hello, everybody. Waiting for the slides. Do you have the slides? Here we go. Back. I'm the founder of Kinomé, which is a social business which I started back in 2005, which mission is to turn nature into solutions for all of us, for a better life every day. For lack of bringing solutions to people, we will never change their behaviors. That's basically our philosophy. So why is biodiversity important? Brice has explained to us. Let me just give you one slide to show you that the problem is us. If you look at all animals that we can see, not insects, not bacteria, all terrestrial animals on this planet, and you put them, you weigh them, there's 300 million tons of human beings, that's us. 700 million tons of animals that we eat, that's 1 billion. And 100, not even 10% of the total, which is all the other animals. So basically, when it comes to biodiversity, terrestrial biodiversity, we've wiped out everybody else, almost. The good news is the 100 million. We can still do something about it, but it's only us, the human beings, who can do something about it. We are the problem, and we are indeed the solution. And that's what we're trying to leverage on at Kinomé, in a very integrated approach, because you cannot work in silos. You cannot move problems around. You have to, as Frederic was saying, understand how nature can help us. How can nature, how can this little seed of moringa help nutrition all across the tropical belt? Because it's got more proteins than meat, more calcium than milk, and more vitamin A than carrots, for example. So we need to understand, then we need to influence the big guys, the airline CEOs, for example, the ministers. That's what we do through consulting. We do that with the private and the public sector. Then it doesn't mean anything if all of that doesn't turn into reality in projects. That's we do pilot projects, always with a view to turning them into scale, and in the end, making everybody involved. And that's what we do with the last activity, which is education. We need, you know, 3 first activities are expert activities, but then we need everybody. That's the reason why I'm here today. We need the public, and that's what sharing and education is about. Thanks to that integrated model, which is our unique social innovation, it doesn't actually exist in NGOs or companies. It's always broken down in pieces. Thanks to that, we've now reached 1.8 million people, and thanks to these people whom lives we have improved, we have, among many other things, planted 4.4 million trees and worked on over 100 protected areas now. So just to give you one example to illustrate that, very practical, you're flying to Uganda with no greenhouse emissions. Just look at the pictures. On the northern part of a national park, you know, in Uganda, people are not allowed at all into national parks. Poor people go and grow their vegetables right next to the park, and what happens is at night, people cannot go to the park, but elephants and baboons and chimpanzees are allowed to get out of the park. And guess what? They go and pilferage, eat their crops. And people making less than $50 a day lose 40% of their crops in one night. So what they do, even though they may go to jail or even be killed, they go and do poaching. They don't go poaching for chimps, who are one of the few communities left on this planet in big numbers. They go for antelopes and pigs. But a third of the chimps fall into snares and lose one limb. If you see carefully the picture, this chimpanzee is missing one hand, and a third of them are missing one hand, right? And it's nobody's fault, but how do? We do it by introducing, first of all, new crops that are not being eaten by elephants and chimps and baboons, and that have market value that can improve the lives of the people. That we do in return for reducing poaching, and we do, of course, in collaboration with the Uganda Wildlife Authority and all the institutions in between. And you can buy tea or very soon pepper or vanilla that is poaching free, that is good for chimps and biodiversity, okay? So you can do that, but also, and we can comment to that later in more details, I heard that most of you are no biodiversity experts. What can they get out of this room today and do for biodiversity? There's many things, but one thing, reduce pressure on habitat, the habitats that Brice took us through, right? Animals have disappeared because they have no place to live in. Well, if we consume less meat, for example, forest is disappearing from Brazil because people cut trees down and put cattle. If you eat less meat, I'm not saying you should be a vegan, but less meat, you're directly impacting positively forest. Same with palm oil. Cherish water. Water is our most precious good on this planet, much more precious than gold or anything else. Then reduce chemicals. And then last but not least, fall in love with nature. And not only exotic natures. Chimps are fine. But this insect I took a picture of in a very normal farm in Ivory Coast, and we have as beautiful animals, insects, for example, in our gardens. Fall in love. Take the time to be in awe in front of nature. And that's the only way that you will understand that we are part of the problem. In fact, we are the problem, but we are the solution, and we have many ways to improve our lives doing that.
Brilliant, thank you. So, one of my first question actually is like a personal question, which is what makes you personally passionate about biodiversity? Why are you concerned with this on a very more kind of heart level, as in addition to the head, maybe? Who'd like to go first?
Well, that's right. That's actually the last thing I said. I fell in love with nature because my parents took me to the forest to pick mushrooms. And that's the reason why you've seen education as one of our activities, because we need, actually it should be compulsory to take children to nature and to the forest. You know, that's my dream, is to get every education minister on this planet to make it compulsory that every child in primary school at least goes once to the forest. Half of them have never seen a forest in the Paris area, half of them.
Amazing, okay.
I'm probably going to restate exactly what Nicolas said, but it all started, you know, thanks to my dad, who was a research engineer at INRA, and he studied soil biodiversity. So it only took me 40 years to actually realize what he gave me, and that's when I made a career switch to embrace, you know, this cause. And as we said, biodiversity is as important as, you know, oxygen. So taking care of it is just a completely obvious choice. And it starts with education, and, you know, we'll see later, but in the programs that we kickstart in the Amazonian area and in Peru or Guyana, we take care of education as importantly as we take care of planting trees. It's by taking the people locally as well. They live in a forest, but they don't always understand the ecosystem that is involved there. And for them, taking down trees is a means to survive. So we can't just, you know, say, oh, it's bad cutting trees. We have to really understand the ecosystems where, you know, where we interact to bring sustainable solutions also to them.
Fantastic. And Brice, you're one of those environment ministers. What motivates you to become the environment minister?
Well, I'm a tree hugger. And when I was young, I was living near a big forest, and I spent all my time in the forest, and yeah, it followed me.
Brilliant. Okay, so Brice actually has already covered this, but why, for Nicolas and Frederic, are you focusing on forests specifically? You've got this general passion for biodiversity, but why forests specifically for you two?
Well, we see forest as a sort of the tip of the iceberg. What people don't always realize is that everything starts from the soil. You know, simple image there, but the soil acts like a refrigerator. When it's empty, nothing grows back. And this is what happens with deforestation. You basically empty the fridge, and after a couple of years, there's nothing else that grows there. So in order to rebuild the forest, and reforestation is one way of rebuilding soil, it is a very complex thing to do because you, again, arrive in an environment that you have to understand. Biodiversity is a complex mix of things. So we do look at forest as the first step towards rebuilding those complex ecosystems with or without human being living in there. It depends, you know, the type of project we're working on. But for us, it's just the essence of, you know, bringing back diversity. It's the first step.
Well, you got the heart answer, which I believe is the most important. Anything we change in this world comes from the heart. The mind answer is that 80% of all terrestrial species come from forest, so not a bad place to start with. And the water that you're drinking today comes from the Fontainebleau forest. Half of the air that we're breathing comes from the forest. The coffee that you're drinking is coming from a forest, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty much of a no-brainer. The only problem is, again, we are living off-ground now, disconnected from this forest. So the problem is not the choice, is to share the choice, because it's an obvious one.
Great, wonderful. And actually, Brice, returning to your point, you've kind of connected aviation and forests, because forests are a fantastic carbon sink, and they've got all the value that's inherent in them as well. Tell me a bit more about the aviation side. You said that you've been kind of talking to the plane companies. What's been their reaction? Tell me a little bit about those conversations you've been having.
Well, aviation is interested by the idea. Why are they interested? Because it's going to be a real problem for each company to find its own little solution to compensate. And it's going to be high transaction costs for each of the company. They have to pay, they have to look, they have to verify, and they have to sell it, I would say, to the United Nations body which is going to oversee it. If an organization in the forest, with the World Bank for the money transaction, with the guarantee of the red mechanism, which is in the climate change secretariat, with the guarantee of the tropical forest country, which is, yes, we guarantee that this has been saved, with the guarantee also of the experts of the climate change negotiations, because there is a double guarantee system. Companies would be very happy because nothing had to be done. They won't need to bother about verifying. It would be verified by a third party. So they all are interested. Now the problem is there is no OPEC of the forest, to say in one word. And that's the problem. How can we organize that? And you know how it is. Look what's happening in Brazil or in different countries with the political changes. One day they protect it, the other day they don't protect it. It's very complicated. So if we can build a sort of a treaty, a convention, something which would be lasting, this means asking to one of our head of states to do the job. Come on, do it. Go and see the Africans. Go and ask them to do it. Organize this OPEC of the forest, or whatever we will call it, and it will be done. And that will be such a fantastic step. Why? Because it is at scale. It is at scale. Climate change and deforestation are two planetary problems. If we can find a planetary solution, ooh, it would be so good.
Yeah, no, inspiring. And in fact, somebody's just clapped that. Obviously, clearly, they thought it was so good. The title of this talk is Entrepreneurs in Biodiversity. And this stereotype of an entrepreneur is somebody like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, and it's like kind of very hard, and it's about money, and it's about kind of domination. There's a lot of very different energy from the three of you. How do you feel that you're being entrepreneurs? Why is it important to have that entrepreneurial energy in the way that you're expressing? Because I think all three of you are in your own ways. So can you just comment on that, please? Brice?
Well, I've been creating a lot of NGOs. And creating an NGO is not, I mean, you don't do it for profit, of course, but you cannot lose money too much, otherwise you won't be able to go on with your NGO. But creating an NGO and trying to connect the dots and see people and get support, for me, it's like being an entrepreneur to have a company. It's the same sort of spirit of doing something, creating something, bringing people to help, and bringing staff, and, you know, and there we are. So, and it's also international, you know, and it's that relationship between your local work, what you're trying to do on your village or on your place, and the whole of the planet, trying to keep the two in your hand and in your that's what's good.
Brilliant.
Well, let's face it, so far, as a community, we have failed protecting the environment and not only the forest, so we have to be entrepreneurs. It's as simple as that. I mean, if you were in this very part of Paris 5-8 years ago, it was full of sparrows, little birds. Look for them when you get out of here. They're gone. They're gone. And it's not my granddad's times I'm talking about. It's after I graduated from university. It's just very recent. And it's just one example. Same with insects, same with many things. So we have to be entrepreneurs. It's a matter of survival, because biodiversity, as was explained, is not an exotic thing. It's not even a safety net. It's the bedrock of life. You know, life is about relationships, and diversity conditions relationships. If there's no diversity, there's no interaction, there's no life. So how are we entrepreneurs? I think the single most important thing of being an entrepreneur of the 21st century is working together. The technology is here, the money is here. The problem that Brice just mentioned, and it's the same in many things we do, is getting everybody to work together. All the airlines working together, all the institutions working together. But for that, we need you, all of you. When this system starts existing, don't fly an airline which doesn't use it. Simple as that. If you want palm oil to disappear, don't buy a product with a palm oil. It's happened before. You know, and I'm not saying that it should be zero palm oil, but there should certainly be a plan to decrease it drastically. When I was a student, I saw orang-utang like I see you in Indonesia. 85% of the forest has gone. 85%. It will not come back. So we need to be entrepreneurs. We need to be courageous, but more importantly, we need to work together with everybody.
Fantastic rallying call. Thank you.
Just to follow up from those words. I think being an entrepreneur is about being mad at some stage. Is believing in something and just going for it and without thinking too much about it. And I think the new generation today and what we see from the young people graduating from school is that their mentality has changed and they want to get engaged. So all we do with a little bit more experience is just create a framework for those people to actually get a chance to change the world. So this is what we've implemented within Forest Finance. It's just a bunch of young kids actually putting all these things together, working together. We don't pretend we know everything, so we work extensively with research institutes. We actually do work with Nicolas, so it's kind of a funny thing to be together on stage today. But it's all this knowledge. We have all the power, all the knowledge, all the money to make it change. We have to first stop it, and then we have to rebuild it. And entrepreneur is cool with technologies, but is even more cool with nature. So let's do it.
I just want to give an example because I forgot I was on the board of a company. And this company is fighting against bugs to protect crops, but with no pesticide. It creates a little substance which fails the male. And the male thinks the female is there. So he goes and he gets trapped. And this is absolutely fantastic because it's working now for more and more of the crops of the world, for cotton, for coconuts, for et cetera, et cetera. So this company, it's just new, it's just starting, tells me it's the end of the pesticides. I can announce here, pesticides will come to an end soon.
Yeah, right. And I think this is very important as a note to make that actually all of us in this room can be entrepreneurs. Whether you're in a startup, a small organization like these guys here, or social enterprise, or whether actually you're in a large organization, you can be an entrepreneur in a large organization. So you can be entrepreneurial inside. And so the thing is that all of you in this space here today, you're all choosing to be here now because you want to change now. And that's really powerful because you could be outside. The sun is shining. You could be going down to the park. You could be going to see your friends and having a drink, but you're not. You're here. So take this moment and take some inspiration. There's loads of businesses out there. I actually represent another one called Solve Earth. We work with talented entrepreneurs. But there's lots of people as well. Come and talk to these guys. Come and talk to all the other stands about how you could be part of this change now. And I'd just like to finish this panel actually with some kind of more tips about how you kind of language thing as an entrepreneur. Because two things actually, having a look at your websites, you talk about a scientific approach and you use quite a lot of economic kind of arguments behind this. So just as the final kind of question, I'd like you to comment on why, so that's very heady, it's not like about this passion thing, but why do you see that it's been important to talk in that kind of scientific language and that economic language when you're communicating?
Well, again, we mentioned the fact that biodiversity is a complex ecosystem, and when you have a human being living in the middle of a forest in Amazonia, for example, the country is simply to grow crops and feed cattle. 80% of today's deforestation comes from agriculture. By the way, so it makes you think about how to consume food in a bit of a different way once you've actually seen the forest that way. So we, each time we create a new project, we have to think about it in economic terms as well, which is how do we bring an economic system that's sustainable and that helps those people live, taking care of their environment and making money. So we have developed a long-term approach on agroforestry, so it's the mixture of agriculture and forest. And with the agriculture, so cocoa or whatever we use, we bring an economic answer to those people so they stop deforesting we train them, we educate them, we take the kits to the new plantations, and by doing so and by bringing them an economic solution, then they will take care of their forest and they will understand why it's important to actually, grow bio and not cut trees.
Fantastic.
I got a question for the audience. Who hates trees? Please raise your hands if you hate trees. Okay, I'm yet to meet anybody who hates trees. That's a surprise, because they're all going in fumes. And it's actually not stopping. So the problem is how to get that change. Number one, we need to understand better how trees change our lives. You know, antibiotics, half of the anti-cancer medicines come from the forest, and half of us will have probably a cancer. Bad news. But the good news is the solution is in the forest. So economics, same answer. You know, why is the forest disappearing? Because we cut the forest to replace it by something that makes more money. You know, I was with the head of ONF, the French Forest Office. 1 square cubic meter of wood is 45 euros in average, this campaign. This is not 5% of the value of the services offered by the forest. The economy today does not reflect the value of the biodiversity. And it's the same with the ocean. So if we don't look at science, if we don't look at the economy, we will not change it. And again, the good news is, if you look at science, if you look at the economy, there are some answers. You know, we just found a few billions with the airlines. There are some incredible solutions with the moringa, with many other things. And that makes being an entrepreneur, by the way, super cool, because there's so many other solutions that we're yet to find. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And then, Brice, we actually, the final speaker is currently having his headset put on. So we've got time, Brice, for a final kind of comment on why it's important to speak in the language of the business world, the economic world, the science world. Why do you believe that's important?
I believe today, unfortunately or not, business, companies, are managing the relation of humankind to nature. Before, we were all peasants and farmers, and we were doing it. But now, it's companies everywhere who make holes in the earth, which manage agriculture, agribusiness, which burn, slash, or whatever. So if we don't work with business, we'll never make it. We need to change business, and luckily it's starting to come, because we have a new generation of managers who want to work for the good, and we are working with them. So you have to understand business if you want, and probably you have to understand business is not there for money. Business is there for the purpose of the business. I mean, Peugeot, Renault, or whatever, they produce cars. They don't produce money. They produce cars. And of course, you mustn't lose money. That's the only constraint. If you understand that and you be able to speak with companies and business, you can go very, very far. And now science. Science is more complicated because you have two sorts of sciences. You have the sciences with, in a microscope, knows much more on a very, very little part of nature. And you have the ecology, which is holistic. Try to have a global view of what you're doing, what's happening, of the counter effects, the backlashes, and things like that. And this is such a fantastic science. I mean, it's incredible. So if you can master a little that way of seeing everything and being in love with it, because as you said, if you don't have the heart, you won't make it. And you can convince everybody, if people see you are sincere and you really want to do it, they're going to follow you. So that's what I think. And I wanted to just say something so funny. When you go in the field in winter and you have a big plowed field and you try to walk on it and it goes, that's the plowed field. Just beside you have a wood and you go in the wood, it's all dry. It's so fantastic, the difference.
Of course, so that's a good example, and actually fits with how Nicolas was talking about how humans are weighing heavy on the planet, on our land, we're weighing heavy. So this section has been about biodiversity on the land, and I just want to thank, in the traditional style, these gentlemen for their contributions.